Can't see my pencil. Put it away.
Okay, we are live. Brilliant. Welcome everybody to Dhaka Tribune. And in today's session, we present Learn English with the British Council. My name is Steve Sharp, the Deputy Teaching Centre Manager of the British Council Teaching Centre in Dhaka. And in today's session, we are going to be talking about 21st century English learning skills for university students. To help us discuss this topic, I'm joined by two colleagues today. Tanya Mansour. Hi, Tanya. How are you?
Hi, Steve. I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Now, you're not a stranger to these sessions, so your face is very familiar for all of our viewers. And making his debut today is Ibrahim. Hello, Ibrahim. How are you?
Hello, Steve and Tanya. I'm fine. Thank you.
Brilliant. It's good to have you on board for this session. Very much appreciated.
Yeah.
So we are going to be talking about 21st century English learning skills for university students. We're going to talk about what skills are needed at university, how does English relate to these skills, and how can you improve these skills for university. Please do write your questions and comments in the comment box, and we will try our best to answer them during this session, okay? So let's kick off with the first question. What skills are needed at university? Tanya, we'll start with you. Can you give me some examples of the skills that we need at university, please?
Right, so the three that I'm going to talk about are presentation skills, critical thinking skills, and being able to take constructive criticism. So those three I will talk about, and then I think Ibrahim can talk about a couple more, and you can also add some more, Steve. So the first one that I'd like to talk about is presentation skills. And I think presentation skills is very important in university because there are a lot of projects that students need to do during university, and they need to present them. And also beyond university, at the workplace, you know, you have to make presentations and do them and present them in front of people, right? So it's a very important skill that goes, that you use during your university life and beyond, you know, extends to your work life as well. Right, so what does it involve? Now, presentation skills involves speaking clearly, of course. And when we say speaking clearly, we mean knowing where to pause, knowing, you know, speaking clearly so that you can be heard, speaking clearly so that you can be understood. So, you know, speaking clearly in itself has several other sub-skills, but, you know, it's a big one. And then, of course, we've got a very important one, signposting. When we say signposting, we are talking about, you know, introducing, adding examples, moving from one topic to the next, concluding your presentation, etc. So, you know, once again, there are a lot of things under signposting that we do. Now,
I think signposting, actually, Tanya, is probably one of the most important aspects of English when we're talking about presentations, because it helps the presenter to deliver the information in a very logical way, which in turn will help the listeners to understand the content. And as you said, this language can be used outside of the workplace, in your written work as well. So yes, I'm a huge fan of signposting, definitely.
Yes. Also, signposting is like, you know, the listener or the reader knows what to expect. So by looking at the signpost, they know whether you are going to now give an example, whether you are about to end your presentation, you know, you're right.
Exactly.
It's like, you know, just like, you know, on the road, you've got signs telling you what direction you're going to you're going to move in. Similarly, as a listener, it tells you what direction the speaker is going to take or what they're going to talk about.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. Another important skill that falls under presentation skills is adding examples. And again, there are various ways of doing it. And as we were saying, Steve, in the last presentation, presentation skills is one of those skills where you sort of marry the structure of your presentation to the language that you use. Yeah. So, very important one, presentation skills. Right.
Yes, I love the way that you use that. You look at that kind of coin of phrase, like marrying the language together. Beautiful, love it.
Thank you, Steve. The next one I want to talk about is critical thinking skills. Now, critical thinking and problem solving, for me, they go hand in hand. Because you use your critical thinking skills to solve problems, right? So critical thinking is all about thinking from different angles to help find a solution and to expand your view on a particular subject. Now, critical thinking involves making observations, analyzing the situation, the problem, interpreting it, reflecting on it, and then finally evaluating it to reach like a conclusion or an opinion or an action, right? So again, it's got several sub-skills, under it. Once again, this is a skill that we need to use throughout our life. I think problems don't just, come to us during our university, but also in our work life and in our personal life. I think it's very important.
Definitely. I think critical thinking is key to success in any career, but also in our personal lives. In order to have the ability to see a problem or a situation from another point of view, helps you to see the wider picture, to sympathize, and to reach an agreement and to move forward. So critical thinking is key. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Okay, the next one I want to talk about, and this is, I think, again, a very important one, constructive criticism and being able to take it, because,
yes, definitely.
About what it's like in the West, but in this part of the world, in Southeast Asia, it's difficult for us to take criticism. I think because we haven't been taught how to take it. So what happens is, I think there's a cycle to this, right? There's a cycle of, like, when you receive criticism, the cycle is you become upset, and then there's denial, and then there's acceptance. And I think it's very important for you to be able to understand the criticism and to act upon it in a positive manner, for you to understand and go through that entire cycle. I think it's very important not to skip any stage of that cycle. Right?
Yes.
So you go through the entire cycle, complete it. And I think somebody said something really important here. I can't remember who, but I think this fits in so well, that when you receive criticism, you need to remember that feelings are information, but they're not direction. And I found this really, really useful. So,
very nice.
From that feeling, from that information, you can identify the root cause of the feeling and address it, subsequently. So once you know the problem, you'll be able to address. Once you know the cause of the problem, you'll be able to find a solution to it in the best possible manner. So you treat that feeling as information rather than a direction, like, okay, I'm feeling angry now, and so I should react. So instead of that, why am I feeling angry? Is this really true? Maybe I should speak to someone else and find out if they think the same thing about my view or my, the paper that I wrote. Why did my professor think it wasn't good enough? So instead of like using that feeling to give you direction, use that feeling as information to find the problem and then the solution. So yeah.
I think critical thinking also comes into that situation, because you need to be able to analyze the situation and, as you said, look at the root cause. Where has that come from, and how can I change my direction? It's really it's using that as a learning curve in order to improve yourself. And I've said it before, Tanya, when we've done like CELTA interviews, people become, it's in our human nature to become very defensive when people start to criticize our performance, when actually the feedback is there to help us improve and evolve. And although that's not directly linked to English language learning, it is a key skill in order to succeed, not only at university, but in life in general. So I think definitely, I agree with those 3 points that you made there. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. So Tanya spoke about presentation skills, critical thinking skills, and constructive criticism. We're going to go over to Ibrahim now. Ibrahim, can you give us some examples of skills needed at university and how these relate to English specifically, please?
Thank you, Steve. Most of the skills that you would need in your career, you have to learn them in your university life, or maybe even earlier. And for example, when you communicate, listening, active listening, the skill of active listening or listening skill, that's major. That's very important. Most of the time, most of the communication is actually for an individual is listening. If you just hear me or hear someone speak, and you are not sort of like paying attention, it's not effective. You will understand this when you are in a lecture, and if you're not focused, if you are listening to instructions, if you're not focused, if you are even if you're watching a movie and you're not listening to what the characters are saying, you probably won't be able to follow the plot. Same with in any other aspect where you are required to listen attentively.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one way to improve that is to improve your active listening skills is actually focus yourself to understand what the content is, and trying to maybe summarize for yourself. Maybe you can paraphrase what you heard, so that you can test your listening skill and try to work on it. I'm sure Steve later on you'll speak a little bit more on this. Next, very important skill that university students should focus on is research skill. That involves because if you're doing an assignment, if you are preparing for your exams, you'll have to consult different sources for your learning. And that would require you to apply your research skills, which, for example, reading. You will read different content from different sources, and you'll have to comprehend. You'll have to make connections with different pieces of information. And then writing skills. Yeah.
So just to branch off from there, Ibrahim, I cannot stress enough how important reading is when you go to university. And while you're at university, all of this, you need to do a lot of background research in order to understand terminology, theories, and that will help you to, create your presentations, to write your written assignments, etc. And it will also allow you to get a better understanding of the subject that you are studying. Reading is key, and I think the more you read, the more rounded of a person, the better understanding you will have of not only the subject you're studying, but life in general. But we can talk more about how to improve reading. And I think also another key point, excuse me, when we're talking about research, is to make sure that you know, you are using reliable sources of information. Okay?
Yeah.
Wikipedia is not a reliable source of information. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a global wiki. It can be edited by anyone. It doesn't really include empirical research, and it's, you know, it's important that students start to improve their digital literacy skills. So this means being able to use technology to their advantage to help them with their studying. You know, looking at different sources, reliable sources, to find this information, which is going to help them with their university skills. Good. Are there any other points you'd like to mention, Ibrahim?
Thank you for adding that, Steve. And yeah, writing skills, that's very important for a university student. And having the right structure, and Tanya did talk about structure in her session as well. So having the right structure, making your writing easier to read, and being able to present the points that you want to present. So it's important that you have the right appropriate writing skill. That for example, a lot of universities would need to write. Their tone has to be academic when they're writing. So knowing the formal language, the vocabulary, and the structure again, because it's very important. So I would say that these are the skills. I think I also can talk a little bit about communicative skills. Yeah.
Sure. Before you go on to communication skills, yes, writing is key, especially for written assignments, creating presentations. But I remember Tanya also added a couple of extra points when we last talked about this topic, about taking notes and making notes. Tanya, do you want to explain your understanding of the difference between these two? Because they are, you know, they do involve the skill of writing, and it really is important that students learn how to take and make notes and use those to their advantage. So Tanya, could you explain the difference between writing notes and making notes, please? If you unmute yourself, Tanya.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned in the last session, I think that there's a big difference between making notes and taking notes. I think taking notes involves you listening and taking down what someone else is, saying, or you reading and taking it down. So it's more like you reacting to receiving something, whereas making notes is, once you've internalized that, and you've made that your own, it's your own interpretation, you add your ideas, and then you make the notes. So I think making notes is broader, because it includes your opinions, your ideas, your take on, on a subject or a topic, whereas taking notes is just you listening and taking down, or you reading and taking down what someone else is saying about the topic. Yeah. So big difference there. I think you make notes for presentations, you take notes at a presentation. Yeah. So that's,
I think exactly that. And the point you made, you make notes for a presentation, and you use these to prompt you, to help you remember what you're going to say. What does this date refer to? What does this name refer to? What is this, what does this theory refer to, etc. Because when you make notes, they're not full sentences. And one thing I've noticed in my teaching career is when I say to students, okay, make notes, they write full sentences. And they just like keep going on. And I don't, often they don't understand the concept that making notes short, like single words or phrases. Yeah. This Absolutely. Is a key kind of like writing sub-skill that's going to help them, succeed better at university, and also, in their daily lives. So Yeah, there is I think I completely agree with you. There is this distinction.
Can I just add one more thing, Steve?
Sure.
I think both making and taking notes is a very personal experience, because for me, for example, when I make notes or when I take notes, it's usually like, a diagram, or it's never like full sentences. It's either keywords, it's a diagram, and it's often like little pictures here and there, because I'm a very visual sort of a person. So I help those little visuals or like diagrams to help me as prompts to help me speak or to expand on my ideas. So yeah, I feel like, there are different techniques. Some people like to just write keywords. Others like to do like a tree diagram. Others like a spider diagram. So that in itself, there are several techniques involved in making and taking notes.
Yeah. And like you said, it's very personal, because the way we understand something is personal to us. You may understand it in one way, I may understand it in a different way, and we may use different techniques in order to help us understand it. As you said, you're a visual learner. I too am a visual learner, and I have to kind of like, make pictures or maybe create a scenario in my head to show what's happening, or in order to understand the theory. So yes, it is very, very personal, definitely. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, Ibrahim, you wanted to talk about communication as another important skill. Could you give us a little bit of information about that, please?
Yeah. So all of the skills that so far we have talked about, most of them or all of them are part of your communicative skill. And the last thing we were talking about, and Tanya so nicely presented about the writing skill. Your research skills, your active listening skills, they feed into your writing. And if you have done the proper research, and if you have received the information and internalize it, like Tanya said, it's easier for you to produce a good quality writing. Not only submitting assignments, it's useful even when you are writing an email to your professor or to your university, or if you're doing a if you're writing a job application. These all are very important pieces of writing that open doors for you, gives you opportunities. So you would want to improve this skill. Most of the students that we teach at the British Council, they really appreciate when we give feedback on their writing skill, because in some cases students don't really have the prior experience or knowledge of how to actually compose. In certain cases, a lot of them think that the vocabulary and grammar is holding them back. In some cases it's true, but in many cases it's not actually knowing how to structure the writing, how to brainstorm, and how to draft your writing, and how to edit, and so on. I think these all can be included. These all are included in our overall communicative skill of any student or any individual.
Yeah, I think when people think about communication, they only think about oral communication or written communication. However, they don't realize that the importance of reading and listening, which will help them to communicate. Let's put it into context. You are at university, you're taking part in a seminar where you're discussing some theories, some theorists related to your subject. And in this group discussion, you are talking about the pros and the cons. Now, in order to communicate your ideas, you need to be able to listen actively, as you said, Ibrahim, in order to understand the other person's point of view, which will then allow you to think of, all right, do I agree with them or not? Why? Can I give examples? So listening is key, is a vital part for oral communication. When we're thinking about written communication, if we take the example of writing essays, reading is really important because you need to read up on the subject. You need to find out what this scholar or that scholar has said, what are their viewpoints, how does that relate to my topic, do I agree with it or not? So in that case, reading is vital, because if you can't understand what has been written by scholars, then you're not going to be able to form your own argument. So communication does include oral, like speaking and writing, but reading and listening is just as important, if not more, because without listening and reading, you can't form an opinion, basically. What are your thoughts on that, Tanya and Ibrahim?
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Without having those key skills of reading and listening, and being able to comprehend someone else's opinion and view, especially, if you're not able to read literature and views of scholars in that particular subject, and being able to, if you want to interpret it, you've got to understand it first.
Yes.
And then be able to present your interpretation. So yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about 21st century English learning skills for university students. If you've just joined us, that's the title. Please write any questions or comments in the comment box, and we can answer them to the best of our abilities. Excuse me. So we've given everybody some information about the types of skills needed at university and what they involve. So how can we improve these skills before going to university and while we're at university? Okay, so Tanya, I'm going to start with you first because you started first, okay? So you spoke about presentation skills. How can students improve their presentation skills? Okay, so presentation skills involves speaking, standing up and facing the public, facing your fears. So I think one of the first things to do is getting used to, standing up and speaking, and getting over that initial fear of, or am I going to make a mistake, and what's going to happen? What are people going to think? I think that first, initial, you need to overcome that fear. And you can do that in several ways. One is to practice in front of the mirror, and then keep practicing till you feel you are comfortable and confident. Another one is to actually join a course, and where you work on with other people, and you are forced to actually present. You are put in a position where it's part of the coursework, and so it doesn't feel as daunting because you're with other people. You're probably presenting in a group, and you start small. You do one part of the presentation, your group mates do the other parts. So I think one, practicing by yourself. Two, putting yourself in a position where you have to do a presentation, but doing it in small parts, working in groups to help you. I think that's one way to improve your presentation skills. Yeah. Brilliant. Also, I'd like to add researching the language of presentations. We spoke about the importance of signposting, giving an introduction, moving to one topic, adding an example, concluding, etc. Like, researching this language is key because it helps to structure the presentation, which in turn will help the audience to understand what it is you're talking about. Some great key points there. I'd like to add one more, Steve. Watching other good presenters, people you'd like to be like, observing them, and then noting down the kind of language they use, as you said, when they signpost, how they begin a talk, how they end it, etc. Yeah. So noticing that and noting it down and trying to use it, try using it in your own presentations. Yeah. Yes. There are some great resources on the British Council Learn English website, which focuses on language for presentations. And also, one thing that I've done in the past with students is to get them to YouTube some TED Talks, okay? Very short 5-minute TED Talks about a topic that interests them. They can see the way the presenter speaks to the audience, interacts with the audience, their body language, excuse me, and also other people who give presentations and get them to analyze the language that they use. And again, this kind of links to digital literacy skills. So using technology to help you improve your, your skills in a reliable way. Brilliant. Tanya, you also talked about critical thinking skills. So how can we improve our critical thinking skills? It's quite a difficult one, but not impossible.
Yeah. Not impossible. I think one easy way is to work on projects. Get involved in projects, because projects will pose a problem, and you've got to find an innovative, a creative solution to that problem. And often when you are working on a project, you're working with other people. So, you've got different perspectives, different angles from which different people are looking at the same problem, the same issue. And then you're trying to sort of negotiate and come to a solution that's come from everybody. And so I think that in itself involves a lot of critical thinking. So getting involved in projects, getting involved in group work, I think will help you boost your critical thinking skills. A great.
Definitely. Team working skills. This is key when you go, into the world of work. You need to be able to work in a team. And if you can start that, before university and while you're at university, that will definitely set you up in good stead for the future. Also, I think to add to that point, another way to improve or improve your critical thinking skills is, this is one thing I've done with my advanced students in the past. Take a news article or a topic in the news and see how it is reported in the news from different news sources. There are certain newspapers that are more right, others that are more left, and it's really interesting for students to see a news article being reported from different perspectives. I think that's the key word, different perspectives. And then they get to analyze them, compare them, and they think, okay, so this person thinks of this, views this situation from this point of view, this person from another one, and they have these two kind of like contrasting views, and then they can decide themselves, okay, well, which one do I agree with, why or why not? So that's another way that students can practice and improve their critical thinking skills. They can easily do it from the comfort of their own home. It's not something that necessarily needs to be done in a classroom or at university, but just on a daily basis, when you're looking through different news websites or reading different newspapers, just see how the news is, one news topic is reported differently in different news sources. So yeah, some great examples there. Thank you, Tanya. Ibrahim, let's go over to you. So how can students improve their communication skills? Can you give us any advice on that one?
Absolutely important that they understand what you mentioned a few minutes earlier, that communication just doesn't mean that you can speak. You'll have to have the right reading skills and active listening skills, and you need to find ways how you can improve. If you are listening to something content, and if you can internalize that, that means that you are actually actively listening. If you're reading, like you both of you mentioned, if you're reading and if you can compare different sources, if you can understand what the writer's opinion is, then it means that you are actually using your comprehension skills, and you are reading and understanding the content. For example, if like Tanya mentioned, when you are working on your presentation skills, practice in front of a mirror or with a group, and improve, take it one step at a time. If you are writing, it's very important that you try to get feedback from someone who knows how you can improve your writing, where you need to improve. We at the British Council, we do help students with feedback, and they can start with one draft and they can edit based on feedback, peer feedback, feedback from the teacher. For example, we also help them improve their listening skills. If you listen to a conversation between 2 or more people, and then you have to sort of like, if you can tell who said what, which information is true based on what you heard, which is false, if you can summarize, and we show you different techniques of how you can do it. We take you through stages so that you can that makes the learning easier, even fun. So those are the ways we do generally apply and try. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, some great suggestions there. I want to just expand on active listening. One thing I've done with my students in the past is to encourage them to listen to things that interest them, listen to topics that they're interested in through podcasts, which are recorded radio shows. They're free to download. You can listen to them on your smartphone or on your computer whenever you want to, or watching your favorite TV shows or movies on streaming websites. And while they're listening, I encourage them to take notes of language which they find interesting, words or expressions which maybe they didn't know. They can look it up, then try to use it in their own daily conversation. And this is a great way to not only improve their listening skills, but also to expand their range of vocabulary, their range of language. Okay, so yeah, active listening is key, especially when you're at university. You're sitting in lectures, the lecturer is presenting ideas on the topic, on the subject that you're studying, and you need to take notes. So it's, all of these skills are kind of like rolled in together. So great, thanks for that, Ibrahim. We've got a question from a viewer. How can I improve my fluency skill when speaking? So when we're talking about fluency, it's your ability to speak at length without hesitation or pauses. Now, it's natural for us to pause when we're having a conversation with family or friends in order to breathe, obviously. And maybe there's a word that we don't remember. Sometimes I hesitate or pause when I'm speaking in English because I think, oh, maybe I've lost my train of thought. What was I going to say, etc. So it's natural for people to pause. But when you're speaking another language, it's a little bit more difficult. So to answer this question, I can ask Tanya and Ibrahim. The key to improving your language skills is practice, practice, practice. If you have some friends or family members who speak English, have a conversation with them about a topic that interests you, or what you've been up to today, or what their opinion is on something that's happened in the news or the latest film that's just come out. If you enjoy reading, which I do, maybe join a book group where you can discuss your ideas, your opinions on a book that you've all read. Practice makes it perfect, and the more you practice, the more fluent you'll be able to come. Okay, Tanya, Ibrahim, any other ideas on how students can improve their fluency when speaking?
All right, so improving fluency, I think this is what I tell most of my students. I say, find a partner in crime, someone else who wants to improve their speaking skills as well, like you, because I feel like often, say for example, you and your best friend, you always speak in Bangla. It's very difficult for you to suddenly shift to English and start speaking in English, right? So I'd say if it's a classmate who, you're doing a course together with, or someone, a friend who's also interested in improving their English, find that person and I think set up a time with them that every week, once a week, think about a topic that interests the both of you, or maybe a group of you, and say for half an hour, we are going to speak in English only, right? So then you're on a mission, and it's not oh, why are you speaking in English suddenly, dude? It's not like that. Because you've planned it. You've planned to do that. And it's for the both of you, it's for the whole group. It's mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to improve your fluency, because you've thought about the ideas, you've preset the topic that you're going to talk about, and you've got just the one rule: we're going to speak in English. So, I think that's a great way to improve your fluency.
The more you practice, the better you become, definitely,
exactly.
Tanya. Good.
Yeah. And you do it consistently. Do it over every week, maybe twice a week. Yeah. So
exactly. We've talked about being consistent in previous Facebook Live sessions, Tanya, and it's getting into this habit, this routine of practicing your English, reading in English, watching or listening to podcasts in English. It's this routine. The brain is a muscle. And when people go to gyms, they want to get big biceps, big chest, they want to work on their abs, their legs, everything. They train on a regular basis. And this is exactly what students have to do in order to improve their English. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen by attending class, once or twice a week. You need to do something else in addition that complements what you're already doing. So yeah, getting into that routine, that practice. Brilliant. Ibrahim, any other ideas or suggestions on how students can improve their speaking fluency?
Yeah, sometimes students think that it's the lack of vocabulary that's holding them back to have better fluency. In some cases, it's very true. But in many other cases, it's the lack of practice. The thing that you mentioned, both of you mentioned, lack of practice, and you need to find a partner in crime, like Tanya put it, to practice. Some students say that they don't really have someone to practice with. Tanya also mentioned you can practice in front of a mirror. Believe me, it helps. And sometimes
I speak to myself all the time in the 3 languages that I speak, and it keeps them active. So yeah. Don't be afraid. Do it.
Yeah, nothing embarrassing about it, or you're not losing your mind. It's just you are improving yourself.
Let your family members catch you doing it.
Yeah. So to some students, we suggest that you can record yourself speaking in any sort of recording device, just maybe on your phone. Play it back, listen to yourself, and you probably would be able to identify where you are hesitating, and maybe you can try the same speech again. Like a repetition of the same few sentences, it helps. When you notice that you are running out of ideas and that's why you're pausing, a very simple thing you can do is use fillers. And it's not just ums and ums that they are not fillers. When you say things like, let me think, to be honest, and you are using certain phrases to give yourself time. At the same time, you're not breaking the flow of the conversation or the speech. And native speakers are pausing or using fillers all the time. So it's not like it's a problem if you're pausing. Sometimes you actually need to pause to make your meaning clear.
Yeah, good. Some good suggestions there, Ibrahim. Thank you. We have another question. I like this one. Is the British accent necessary to get a high score in the IELTS exam? I will start by answering this question. Thank you, Ridwan, for posing this question. There is this myth that is going round that in order to get a higher score in the IELTS speaking exam, you need to have a British accent. I can tell you now that is wrong, okay? British English isn't the only variety of English. There is American, Canadian, Australian, New Zealand, South African, the list goes on. And in today's world, there are more non-native English speakers than native English speakers. The key to getting a high score in the pronunciation criteria of the IELTS speaking exam is intelligibility. Now, let me explain that. Intelligibility means being clear, that the speaker, that the listener doesn't have to strain to understand what you're saying, okay? As an experienced IELTS examiner myself, I have given high grades to candidates in the past, and they have a little twang, you know, you can still hear their accent, but I can understand them perfectly, okay? So having a British accent specifically, it's not that important nowadays, it really isn't. If you want to have a British accent, then that's fine, you know, expose yourself to British TV, British podcasts, etc., so you can mimic the pronunciation. If you want to have an American accent or Canadian accent or an Australian accent, that's absolutely fine. Expose yourself to that accent and then you can mimic the pronunciation. But does it mean that you will get a higher score? No. And also, pronunciation is only one of the 4 criterias in the IELTS speaking exam. So to answer this question, no, the important thing when it comes to pronunciation in the IELTS speaking exam is intelligibility. That means clarity. Can the examiner understand what you're saying, okay? I kind of like went on a little bit about that, but that's something very close to my heart. You know, we've talked about it a lot in previous Facebook Live sessions, and I think it's really important to break down that myth. You know, yeah. Tanya, what are your thoughts on this as an experienced examiner yourself, Tanya?
I'd just like to add 2 things, Steve. You mentioned clarity, absolutely important. I think the other 2 things that are important are intonation, you know, so you've got a rising and the falling intonation so that there is change in the pitch of your speech, and also rhythm, you know, so you don't want to sound like a robot when you're speaking. You're a human being, and the interviewer is also a human being. So, you know, you want to sound as human as possible. So you want to vary your intonation and you need to maintain a rhythm. So yeah, those 2 things are important as well. Clarity, of course, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Ibrahim, any other suggestions on that one?
Absolutely couldn't agree more with you and Tanya. Students sometimes worry about accent. They should be focusing on their pronunciation, like Tanya mentioned, and intonation as well. CONTEST. Now, depending on what you want to mean, the pronunciation is going to change, is going to be completely different. If you're not aware, if you're too focused on accent and you're trying to sound British, that probably would actually be counterproductive. So, of course, pronunciation and intonation, that should be the focus.
Clarity, yeah, definitely. Thank you both for that one. So let's continue. We're talking about ways of improving our English when we're talking about 21st century English learning skills for university students. We've spoken a little bit about the British Council courses, the fact that they are communicative. We encourage students to speak. We give them feedback. We're also running a specific intensive English course for HSC students in order to help them improve their study skills. So if you're interested in that, please write your comments in the comment box below or contact our customer service. Are there any other ways that students can improve their English in order to help their study skills? Tanya, I'm going to go to you on this one.
So study skills actually involve some of the things we've been talking about. So, you know, being able to research, being able to read something, interpret it, being able to quote it in your writing, in your presentations. Also, I think another very important one is time management and maintaining a study routine.
Time
Absolutely.
management.
Study skills. Yeah. So I think that my mantra is, I mean, you know, this is me as a student, me, and I'm sure Steve, you and Ibrahim as well. I think little but often. I think that, you know, is so so key to, you know, being a good, effective student. So throughout my study life, I had, I remember it's not like I studied for hours, you know, together. Instead, I do a little bit every day.
Yes.
So I was consistent with my routine. And I think that's what, you know, helped me through the workload that, because university, you know, it's a lot of work. You've got a lot of presentations to do, a lot of assignments to submit, classes to attend, seminars to attend, you know, and also you've got, you know, your life. You're a young person at university. You have to spend with friends.
Yeah.
So it's not all about just studying. So you've got to know how to do it properly, how to do it in an efficient manner. And I think having that routine and doing a little bit every day, breaking your workload into manageable chunks, and then distributing it, you know, and making sure that it's completed well before the deadline, so you can check it and make sure you're submitting your absolute best. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think, yeah. So I think all of that will happen if you manage your time properly. So I think time management is a key study skill.
Yes, and just to branch off on that one as well, we mentioned earlier in today's session about the importance of getting into a study routine and getting into a routine of exposing yourself to English. So reading books, watching films, listening to podcasts, etc. Time management is key to this. We have, you know, the older you get, the more commitments, more responsibility you have, whether it's family, work, social life, etc. So time management, although not an English skill in itself, is really important to allow us to practice and improve our skills. So it really does kind of like, you know, bring everything together, definitely. Ibrahim, do you have any other suggestions of how students can improve their English?
A lot of it has been already covered by both of you, and I'll just add that it's important that you understand it's a language, so you need to work on all aspects of it.
Yeah.
And it's not just about being able to use a few phrases, or it's not just about doing your bare minimum, like Tanya mentioned. You need to put your best into it. And maybe 20-25 years back in our country, these skills and knowing good and having a good communicative skill was an added advantage. Nowadays it's more of a necessity. You are actually required to have this. You are going to take the IELTS test, and if you are not ready with your writing, if you don't have basic vocabulary, it will be very difficult for you. If you want to improve, if you want to have a good career after you graduate, it's going to be very difficult for you to advance your career if you are not good with communication, email writing, presentation, research, and everything, whatnot. So you would have to work on all aspects of all the skills to improve yourself, to better position yourself for taking the opportunities that are coming ahead of you, coming at you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. I think to summarize what we've said, you know, the best way to improve your English skills, obviously attend a class, you know, but what's more effective is what you do outside of the lesson, getting into that routine of exposing yourself to English, active listening, communicating with friends, taking notes of useful phrases that you've heard from listening to a podcast, watching a TV show, a movie, reading a newspaper, a magazine, a book, etc. All of these activities, which you can do freely in your free time, will help you to improve your English skills, which will in turn help you with your university skills. Okay. I don't think there's anything else to add there, really. I think we've really hit the nail on the head there. So if you are interested in registering for our courses, please visit our website. As I said earlier, we're running intensive courses for HSC students, present and previous HSC students, where you'll have a chance to work on group projects, improve your team working skills, your critical thinking skills, your communication skills, and also enjoy yourselves and have a good time with your classmates and your teacher. And also, if you're interested in improving your general English or your IELTS, you're preparing for the IELTS, please visit our website, contact our customer service, or write in the comments below, okay? I think we've come to the end of our session now. So I want to say thank you to Tanya and thank you to Ibrahim for joining me today and for giving our viewers insight into what skills are needed for university students, how they relate to English, and how they can improve them. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much to Dhaka Tribune for working with the British Council today. And thank you to our viewers for watching. Please write your comments and questions in the comment box below. We will continue to answer them even though the session has finished. So thank you both again. Thank you, viewers. And I will see you all for another Facebook Live session next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.